Welcome to Watch, Review, Repeat. This is the podcast where two best friends discuss the latest in film and television and then do it all over again the following week. My name is Colton Brown. Joining me is Andrew Meadows. Now, Andrew, this is a bit of a special episode for the two of us. If you could explain to the listeners how that's the case.
This is the first week that we've been able to record locally. So we're in the same room, we're talking to each other versus over the internet, and I think it makes for a much more personable experience. And we're also covering a movie that I've been super hyped for probably the past 2, maybe 3 weeks, and that's Wind River. So we both saw it last night. We're excited to cover it during this episode.
Wind River, was something that wasn't really on my radar. You had mentioned that you had wanted to see it, so we saw that earlier, and we'll have many thoughts to share later in the episode, but we're going to kick it off with our usual cycle of the latest in film and television news, and we're going to begin with a whole slew of news concerning the DC Comics cinematic universe. So first off, we got a statement from the director of the new Batman movie, which is supposed to come out in the next couple of years. Matt Reeves is the director. He's worked on the last 2 Planet of the Apes movies. And then he also worked on the Let the Right One In American remake called Let Me In. So talented director, very talented director. But he interestingly enough said that when they approached him to take over the directing chair for this role, which originally was falling to Ben Affleck, Batman himself, and he stepped away from that a little while back. He said that, this is going to be a standalone movie. It's not going to be part of this big universe that DC has crafted, and so naturally it set the internet on fire.
Well, to be fair, the movie's had a lot of pitfalls, though, hasn't it? It's had a lot of production issues. You had Ben Affleck, who was supposed to write and direct. He's dropped out of directing, then he dropped out of writing. I think I read somewhere, I don't know if it's legit news or not, but I think they canned the whole script altogether, didn't they?
Yeah, it sounds like they did a page 1 rewrite of the whole script, and it's kind of interesting to see DC taking a step back, and I think I speak for the both of us when I say that, with the exception of Wonder Woman, DC's movie output has, shall we say, not been stellar.
Yeah, I don't think I've enjoyed a DC movie since the Nolan franchise of The Dark Knight. Wonder Woman was good, but with the exception of Wonder Woman, it's been rough.
Been dire straits.
Yes.
So like I said, this whole thing was kind of just, all right, well, what's DC doing? What's going on behind the scenes? It seems like it's nothing but issues for them with this particular movie. And so within, I think, a day or so, Matt Reeves, the director, went on Twitter and said, nope. Don't worry about it. It's going to be part of the universe, guys. Like, stop freaking out. So, so this kind of turned out to be a little bit of a nothing burger, but it's like you said. I'm interested to see what they do with this movie because, DC's track right now is interesting because they're not really following the usual, I guess, Marvel mold. Marvel really kind of started with character movies, gradually building into this big team-up movie that we saw in the Avengers, whereas DC, basically, I guess Man of Steel was kind of a solo movie, but then movie 2 was Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice,
right, yeah,
where they decided to throw everything at the wall to see what stuck. And
we talked about it before, and not in any prior episodes or anything, but where they almost feel like they're shoehorning all these characters in order to, it feels like they're trying to catch up with Marvel, but they're trying to cut an entire decade off of movie building. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, they're not laying the groundwork to make these characters really work and feel cohesive in this kind of team up experience. But we'll get Justice League in a few months to really kind of see if maybe they have if they've kind of got the formula right.
If the trailers give anything away, it's probably not going to happen.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see, won't we? Moving on. So, like I said, quite a few bits of DC news that have come out this week. Another interesting piece that we got is that they announced a Joker origin story film. Now, this one I think is interesting because, again, like I said, the internet was all in a hoopla over the Batman movie not taking place in the universe. And so this movie that they just announced is supposed to focus on Joker's origin, but it's not going to be tied to any previous iteration of the Joker that we've seen. So Jared Leto is not going to appear in this one from his interpretation of the Joker that we saw in Suicide Squad. And so it's kind of interesting. I mean, they're basically with this film, they're, I guess, kind of doing an Elseworlds story where, it's not going to be tied canonically to any of the other films that they've put out in this universe so far. It kind of just seems like, maybe we have an idea to tell. We're just going to make our movie. We're not going to worry too much about the continuity with how it fits in with everything else. And, hopefully we get an interesting movie here that tells a better Joker story than we've seen recently.
Yeah, I hope so. Anything's better than what we've been given. And I think Scorsese is supposed to produce it. I don't know what Todd Phillips has done though. Do you know anything about Todd Phillips?
Yeah, so Todd Phillips probably most prominently did The Hangover. I think he was involved with all three of them, if I'm not mistaken. I know he directed the first one at least, and I think he was a producer, if not outright director, on the second and third one as well. So Todd Phillips is set to co-write this with Scott Silver, who was a screenwriter on 8 Mile, the Eminem film from back in the day, and then Martin Scorsese, who his name speaks for himself. He's supposed to produce it, so it's a very eclectic combination of filmmakers and writers kind of working on this thing. So, like I said, that's something that makes me interested in this project. Whether or not it pans out to anything, obviously remains to be seen. But
DC certainly had their problems. Hopefully they can one day. Hopefully they can start getting their shit together, because it's been a rough road for characters that are just very compelling. You know what I mean? They're very good characters
on paper.
On paper, right? And they can be pulled off. Like the Nolan franchise did. He pulled those characters off really well, I thought.
Yeah, and he did it in a satisfying way. He did it in a satisfying way, even with putting his own spin on it. It wasn't a one-to-one translation from the Batman or any of his supporting characters from the comics, but he did in a very respectful and satisfying manner, to the point where any changes or anything like that, I mean,
they felt earned. Yeah, I mean, they were their own interpretation of those characters, which, you don't have to take a character straight from paper or print and put them, verbatim on screen. You're open to interpretation as long as those interpretations are good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. So we kind of alluded to this when we were talking about recent iterations of the Joker earlier, but
and more Joker news.
I say one Joker movie isn't enough, apparently. They're also fast-tracking a Joker and Harley Quinn movie. Now, this will be a continuation of the Joker and Harley Quinn that we saw in this DC extended universe, their cinematic universe they've built. So Jared Leto and Margot Robbie will be reprising the roles of the Joker and Harley Quinn, respectively, from Suicide Squad.
Oh, yes, my favorite. I love Suicide Squad.
Now, Suicide Squad, I think, if I recall correctly, we saw that movie together. Am I correct in saying that?
We definitely did.
And how many times was there just something that we saw on screen that we just had to look at each other and think, what the fuck?
That was, oh man. And it makes me feel, because I go to work and I talk to people on a daily basis, and naturally I want to talk about movies. I got to find some sort of common ground, and Suicide Squad might come up in conversation and it's received with praise. It makes me think, am I the problem here? But I don't think I am. I think that movie is a piece of, I think it's a pile of shit. I'm not wrong, am I?
You are most certainly not wrong. No, Suicide Squad. So I didn't see everything that came out in 2016 when Suicide Squad came out, but that said, that's probably the worst movie I saw that year.
It's by far the worst DC movie that's come out.
Yeah, I mean, and bear in mind, this is the same year that Batman v Superman came out, which was also a gargantuan piece of shit.
Right.
But it looked like a piece of art stacked up to the Suicide Squad. I mean, Suicide Squad was barely even a film.
It took, 1 month to... They wrote it in 1 month.
Yeah, they wrote it in a month, and it's just... It's not even cohesive. It just felt like a product. It didn't feel like there was any sort of legitimate effort to make a compelling film. It was, well, we know that these characters are popular. We know that people will show up regardless because of that. Why should we put any sort of effort into this movie?
It was a sad thing. Although Will Smith did look like a baller in that movie. I mean, he had that awesome hat. And
it's not to discredit the cast of that movie, who I think did show up for more than just their paycheck for the most part.
I mean, Jared Leto was sending cast members used condoms and rats, right?
Yeah, I say he's just a classy man, keeping his work environment very classy, very 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 nice, non-hostile work environment for all his coworkers.
One would call that they call that method acting. He's really really embracing the character.
Yeah, he's such talent, that guy. Which is weird to say. Jared Leto actually is legitimately a talented actor, which is why it blows my mind that his interpretation of the Joker was one of the... Well, it's bar none the worst interpretation of the Joker I've seen in any medium whatsoever. We don't even need to talk movies alone. I mean, talk every single iteration, comic books, TV shows. I'm comfortable in saying that's the worst Joker I've ever seen.
Now, did you... I know that they cut out a bunch of his Joker scenes, right?
They did.
I'm pretty thankful that they did, because I definitely did not enjoy his interpretation.
Yeah, I mean that movie was bad enough as it is. We don't need him stinking up the screen even more than he already did. Like it was a mercy killing that we didn't have to see, presumably as much as what was actually filmed, as far as his character was concerned.
Now we get a whole full length feature film about him.
Yeah, and so tell me how excited you are about this movie.
I particularly am not excited at all. One thing is guaranteed: whenever that movie does come out, we can fully expect to see every Halloween costume to be Joker and Harley Quinn.
Perfect. Never seen those. Very original choices for Halloween.
Speaking of clowns and Halloween costumes and that sort of thing, we have there's some reaction starting to hit the web on the new It movie coming out, which it's been a long time since I saw the original It. I'm excited to see how, and I regard that film highly. Considering I haven't seen it in a long time, I don't know how it lasts, I guess. But I'm excited to see the new iteration. And apparently these reviews are coming in pretty high, huh?
Yeah. So we don't have any actual full length critic reviews that have arrived just yet. I think there's probably a review embargo that has not been lifted, but we did get a social media embargo lifted, so we've seen a lot of critics chiming in on Twitter, kind of leaving their impressions in 180 characters or less. So I mean, yeah, the general vibe that I'm seeing just from looking across the board on all these is it's very positive.
There's one guy here that says it's the finest Stephen King adaptation ever made.
High praise, right?
That is, I think that's pretty high praise. I mean, saying that it's better than Dark Tower really says a lot.
Yeah, I mean, the Dark Tower set such a high bar for all Stephen King adaptations to come. So, yeah, I mean, that is very high praise. So, sarcasm aside, of course, I am looking forward to this. The 90s miniseries has always stuck in my mind, mostly because I kind of grew up in the 90s. So, it's one of those things that that will immediately traumatize a child that watches it. So, Tim Curry as Pennywise the Clown, he's like a quintessential horror icon for me. I think across the board as well, but I think for me particularly just because of the impact that he had on my childhood, because that was probably like the one horror experience that really kind of stuck with me. Oh,
it was ridiculous. I remember seeing that as a kid, and that was some pretty scary shit when I was a little kid. That was my biggest concern if Skarsgård could captivate that, embody that character. So I'm excited to see what he does with it. I remember when I first saw the costume, I was a little concerned, but then I don't know. He's you see some of the art that's come out, and there's one where he's got like this really messed up looking forehead. And some of the other art and stuff that came out, and then the trailer came out, and it looks pretty compelling, so I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, and fortunately we don't have to wait very long. This will be dropping September 8th in cinemas, so we'll be sure to check that out when it comes out in just a couple weeks' time. We got other slightly horror-related news that we want to cover.
Stranger Things.
Yeah, Stranger Things.
They released a series of character posters, and they look good.
Yeah, they're all just kind of looking with mild shock at something off-screen, or perhaps mild terror in some cases. I'm not sure exactly what's going on with it, but it's nice to see some familiar faces returning from Stranger Things Season 1, which I think kind of took the whole world by surprise when it dropped. I mean, it really captured this retro 80s aesthetic, and the synth soundtrack, of course, was just fantastic.
Oh, man. That intro sequence is so good.
Yes, it is. Another intro sequence we can agree on. But that show, and I think it was only 8 episodes, and it was just such a tightly told, tightly plotted story that I was actually surprised when it wasn't surprised that it got renewed for season 2, but I was surprised that instead of pursuing, maybe an American Horror Story anthology styled approach to this, they said, no, we're gonna bring all these characters back, and we're going to pick up their story exactly kind of where we left off. So, I for one am very excited to revisit all these characters.
I remember when this show came out, I want to say I watched the first episode, the first night it was released, and then I came back and it was a work week. I had to be at work by 9:00 in the morning. I think I stayed up until 3:00 in the morning grinding all the episodes out. It was very impressive. I really enjoyed Stranger Things. But one of the posters that I was kind of just dumbfounded as to why they made it, they have a poster that is almost like a complete ripoff off the original Alien.
It's not
poster.
a ripoff, it's an homage.
It's an homage. There we go. That's a much better word, I suppose.
It's very deliberately, it's a 100% styled after the kind of the original Alien poster,
with
featuring the face hugger egg, and in space no one can hear you scream.
Yeah, and then it says, in the upside down, no one can hear you scream.
It's true. Can't argue that.
But, and that kind of embodies the whole theme of the movie. You know what I mean? It's just an homage to everything that's great from that era, which we did not grow up in, but...
but you could still enjoy.
Yeah, it's very... I don't know, I kind of feel like I grew up in the wrong era, because
yeah, I definitely agree with that. The 80s stuff, just that whole style, the music, everything is so in my wheelhouse that Stranger Things just hits all the right buttons for me, and I think for you too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and in other Stranger Things news, we also got confirmation that season 3 will be happening, which is exciting.
Now, I heard a rumor. I don't know if this is true or not. I read that it's supposed to have a 4-season arc.
Yeah, I think it was, I guess, the Duffer Brothers who were kind of the guys really responsible for making the show.
Right.
I think they've kind of said that they have a 4-season arc mapped out for all these characters that we were introduced to in season 1, and so I think it's only been officially renewed for season 3. But you look at the popularity of season 1 and think about the impact it's had,
and for them to confirm season 3 prior.
Yeah,
to
before
release
season 2 even out, right?
Right. It's probably pretty likely that we'll get season 4, and that's one thing that I appreciate. It's 4 seasons. This is what we're gonna do. This is what we're gonna try to do. You know what I mean? They're not gonna try to stretch it out, and I like concise endings. You know what I mean? I can appreciate a show for having a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Honestly, the best shows are the ones that really have those, central story beats where, too often do you find shows that clearly had a great starting point and just petered out, the rest of the way because the writers just didn't know where to take it. And so I agree. It is encouraging to know that, they know what they're doing. They have a plan for this. And, at this point, all we have to work off of is season 1, but given the quality of season 1, what choice do we have but to trust that these guys know what they're doing? They know what's best for these characters, and they know a way to really craft this story in a way that's going to be very compelling and engaging. So,
yeah, it's exciting to look forward to it for sure. That brings us probably to our meat and bones of this podcast.
Yeah, and I'm excited to talk about Wind River.
I was stoked for this movie when I saw the trailer, and I found out who was directing it. So it's written and directed by Taylor Sheridan, who did the screenplays on both Sicario and Hell or High Water. But Wind River stars Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen, and
it's not an Avengers spinoff.
No, it's not.
So it's not about Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch's misadventures, unfortunately. But, well, I say unfortunately, but this movie, I guess before we kind of get into our thoughts on it, for our listeners, so Wind River is basically, it's a thriller movie, I guess maybe a mystery thriller. Elizabeth Olsen plays an FBI agent that's tasked with investigating a murder of a local girl on a Native American reservation, the Wind River Native American reservation, and Jeremy Renner plays a local hunter for the Fish and Wildlife Service on the reservation, and then their paths cross and carry them through the investigation.
Yeah, Jeremy Renner's a local, and he has a deep rooted relationship with the community.
Right, he's very respected and very much part of the community, whereas Elizabeth Olsen is not the definition of an outsider. Yeah,
and they portray it from the very beginning, and they do a very good job. This whole movie it's an incredible movie. I thought it was fantastic. And they do a good job of displaying the I have a soft spot for movies that can tell a story through the cinematography. I really enjoy cinematography, and they can the tension and the bleakness and the just the somberness of this movie is almost entirely portrayed strictly through. I mean, you could have no dialogue and just retain the story through the images that come through the screen. Which I was really taken back, and I was taken back immediately by the title card. There's a young female running across this snowy landscape, and she's in this plane, and she's running, and she falls over, and as she's running, the title card comes over Wind River, and she runs across this very wide angle shot in the middle of the night. And then she falls over and she dies, and that's your character that the whole movie centers around. And we got out of the movie, and for a solid, I'd say probably at least half hour to 45 minutes, I just kind of felt like shit. I just kind of felt
this movie definitely has that effect on you.
Kind of just kicks you in the stomach. I mean, it's and that's how good the movie is. You know what I mean? It does a very good job of conveying the point that it seeks out to convey, and the acting is fantastic. If I had to criticize the movie at all, I would criticize the supporting female role of Elizabeth Olsen. It doesn't seem like she got a lot of she didn't have a lot to work off of. It seemed like, you know, she had an important role. I just feel like I was less attached to her than I was every single other person in the movie. I should have been more attached to her than what I was. But overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. It's an excellent work of art. It's very good.
Yeah. I love this movie. As simple as that. I mean, this movie was fantastic, and it really blew me away in a way I think that I was not expecting.
You actually hadn't even seen a trailer for
right?
It, I think,
so
right?
I mean, I think prior to walking into the theater, I kind of knew Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen were in the movie, and I kind of had just skimmed over the barest of plot synopses walking into this. So I really didn't know even the genre really that we were going to get from this. So and it is refreshing because I'm kind of the person that will watch every trailer that comes out for anything I'm mildly interested in. So walking into a movie blind like this is something I don't really experience all that frequently. And maybe I should, because like I said, this movie was just phenomenal. And it's a slow movie. It's very methodical in its pacing, but it's worth that investment of the time. I mean, what you see with these characters, what you see with this setting, it's just absolutely it's a masterclass, I would say, in terms of this, and it's very especially impressive. I mean, yeah, we mentioned Taylor Sheridan's screenwriting credits on Sicario and Hell or High Water, but this is his second directing experience. So, I mean, he directed, I think, something a few years ago that was a pretty minor movie, not anything, I think, in terms of budget or scope that this movie was. So for someone that has relatively little directing experience to come in and just craft a movie with cinematography, like you mentioned, that is just so spectacular, it's really kind of awe-inspiring, I would say.
It makes me wonder how much of the cinematography and everything is actually he didn't direct Hell or High Water or Sicario,
right? But
they very much feel extensions of him.
Yeah, and so when I was kind of doing a little bit of research before we recorded this, I guess he kind of considers this part of an unofficial trilogy with those three, or with those two.
It feels like it.
And you can absolutely you can pick up on the thematic similarities between all these movies. Really, in terms of pacing, the characterization, all of it. It is very similar, and I guess it's probably no coincidence that we liked this movie as much as we did, given how much we liked those other two.
That's true. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing for me that really stuck out as what really helped my enjoyment of this movie is that the setting of Wind River Native American Reservation. I mean, it's the title of the movie, and for good reason, because the whole reservation feels so authentic, and it almost feels like such a character itself within the movie. I mean, you think about these snowscapes and these sweeping vistas that we see as we kind of go through, and it pervades really kind of every element of the story. I mean, as we follow Jeremy Renner's character, who's kind of a tracker, every plot beat is very much tied into, well, they're trying to look this way, and he's like, well, I know this land. It's so naturally connected, and the characters that are part of it, I mean, like it really feels like you just dropped into this setting, and it doesn't feel artificial, I think, in some ways that some supporting characters do. The dialogue feels naturalistic, not just for the main characters, but just for even the bit roles that you kind of see, and I think that really helps you empathize and really kind of get into this mindset of these two, and really, for me, it totally pulled me in. I mean,
the one thing that was continuously brought up throughout the whole movie was there's this murder, and they're obviously looking for clues to this murder, and throughout the movie, the cop, the main reservation cop, and Elizabeth Olsen's character want to continue to pull away from the environment, from the reservation. And Jeremy Renner constantly says, listen, the clues are out here in the reservation. They're out here in the wilderness. And there's this constant return to the nothingness that is the reservation. And it's almost touching in a way how they continuously come back to the essential basics of that place. And it's, I don't know, it's really good. I don't have the vernacular to explain what I'm trying to explain.
Sure, and a little bit of alcohol doesn't really help with that either. So,
but there's this constant return back to nature, and how you get what you earn, and the distractions that are present in modern life and everything else. It's definitely it's a very good. The story is good by itself, but then there's this whole subliminal kind of message that it's trying to convey, and it's very compelling.
Yeah, I mean, it's an astounding work of art, I feel, and you mentioned it earlier. Jeremy Renner in particular is just absolutely incredible in this movie. I mean, just the pathos he brings to his character. I mean, I feel like Jeremy Renner's an actor that maybe, if this movie's indication, hasn't had a chance to really show off, I think, the chops that he really possesses, much in the way that, and we talked about this earlier off the podcast, Chris Pine in Hell or High Water.
Right,
I mean, Chris Pine has kind of been relegated to, big tentpole kind of movies. He's Kirk in Star Trek, he's Steve Trevor in Wonder Woman, and he's good in those roles, but he never really gets a chance to properly, do his thing. And Hell or High Water is a textbook example of Chris Pine being great at his job, and it's very much the same case here with Jeremy Renner, where it's just like this is a whole new level to Jeremy Renner that I didn't know existed, and now that I know that it exists, I'm like, I want to see more of this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's astounding.
Yeah, and Elizabeth Olsen, I also thought was incredible, and I do agree that her role was a bit underwritten, certainly compared to Jeremy Renner's character, but what she does offer for this role, I mean, she's fantastic, and I think she really does kind of an amazing job at conveying this. Perhaps a little naive and an inexperienced agent. There's
a point that I want to make, but I don't want to make it until we get to the spoiler section of Elizabeth Olsen's character.
Okay, well, I mean, is there anything else you want to mention before we kind of get into spoilers on this?
I just to sum it all up, it's an excellent movie. The characterization is outstanding. The cinematography is fantastic. It's a beautiful movie. the tension and the just the tension throughout the movie is in the slow burn. I think the slow burn's critical.
And it's worth it. I mean, I think the payoff totally makes your investment worth it.
Right. You have to enjoy. I mean, a customer at the car lot came in and said, this movie's slow. I thought it was going to be action-packed, and it wasn't, and I was a little let down. It's not that kind of movie. It's very much a drama movie. It's very much...
it's a heavy movie.
It's definitely heavy. But it's a very good movie.
My name is Colton Brown, and I approve this message.
But moving into the spoiler territory.
Yes, so full spoilers going forward for Wind River. You've been warned.
I feel like Elizabeth Olsen was almost the way Jeremy Renner regarded her. So to preface this or whatever, Jeremy Renner lost his daughter, and there was a house party, and she disappeared. And there was no real answers given, and Elizabeth Olsen shows up, and she's naive, and she's new to the place, she's new to the environment. She shows up.
I think she's probably relatively new to the bureau as well.
She was in a weapon training class
right.
before going out to the reservation. So, I almost feel like Jeremy Renner's character, almost, I don't want to say treats her like his daughter almost, but it's almost.
No, I mean, I think
she's almost like the living embodiment.
Yeah, there's a feeling of a
daughter.
surrogate daughter, there,
right?
Yeah,
and that's why when her character isn't written as fully as I think she could have been, it's almost a letdown because I feel like there could have been more there than what there was. The scene that she really. The scene that redeems her, not redeems her, but just redeems her character. I should say.
It's certainly probably the best example in the movie of really giving a bit more depth to her character and really letting Elizabeth Olsen really kind of add a different dimension to the character. Is at the end there. So
when she's laying in the hospital bed. And Jeremy Renner tells her that she says that I was lucky, you saved my life, and he says no, you earned your life. You know what I mean? I think one thing he said that really stuck out to me was the wolf does not hunt the unlucky deer, he hunts the weakest deer, and you're not the weakest deer. You've earned your life, and you get to walk away with it. And then he talks about how. Or she talks about how the Natalie ran 6 miles in sub-zero temperatures, barefoot through the snow and through this reservation, trying to get away to safety, and how she fought to earn her, fought to keep her life, but ultimately the Wind River Reservation took it, and is just it's bone chilling.
It is, yeah.
It's a very good movie. There's one scene in particular, and I think we both. It's rated R, and there's a denotion in the rating that there's a rape scene,
which I did not know walking into this movie. For the record,
so you're probably dumbstruck by it. But the use of this flashback, they approach this trailer, and Elizabeth Olsen's knocking on the door to get inside this trailer to look around inside of it to try to gather clues, and as it transitions inside the trailer, it transitions into a flashback. And the use of that flashback I thought was excellent. That transition from the current area to the flashback was awesome. And it felt very natural, and it felt earned. And then it's one of the most powerful moments of the movie. You figure out exactly what happened, and then it was a pretty graphic scene.
Yeah, I mean, in recent memory, it's one of the most harrowing scenes of anything that I've seen on film. I mean, it does not hold back in its depiction of rape, and it really, I mean, even now, and especially, I think we kind of said, after we walked out of the theater, there's a good amount of time where we're just like, shit, like, we felt like we got kicked in the stomach.
Yeah.
And for me particularly, it was that scene. It really stuck in my mind, and it's horrifying. I mean, just thinking about it now, it is chilling because it's such a graphic and brutal depiction of, just the whole situation is, it's hard to talk about because
it is hard to talk about
because
yes.
We're so invested in these characters and we're so invested in this movie, and like I said, the setting really drew me in. And so when we see that, it's not even a character that we really, it's a character that's dead through the entirety of the movie, and the movie revolves around her, yes, but we don't really know anything about her other
within
than
that 8 minutes of flashback,
other than kind of how she's involved in the community. But then we see her, and then we see this thing that she goes through, and it's just, man, it's absolutely, it's tough to watch, and it's extremely, extremely powerful, and just the way, like you said, the way that it just naturally segs from this investigation. Here's the next clue in the trail, and then boom, it takes you into this flashback, and it takes you into this situation where it really kind of shows you how everything unfolded. And it's just, it's well done on a cinematic level, but in terms of really kind of conveying the emotions that it and the horror of the situation, it just captures it in such a almost too perfect way that it really does affect you. And that's the one thing for me, like coming out of it, that really just absolutely stuck out. And it's one of those things, the movie continues on from there. We return back into the present, and now that the audience has kind of been
gunshot.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, it very much picks up
with a literal punch in the gut. And Jeremy Renner is he's almost Winter. You know what I mean? When he comes in there and he blasts away all the bad people, and then he captures the rapist, and then he gives him to the land, and it's
and he said that scene, that the rape scene, was so affecting to me that Jeremy Renner, basically compels him to die in the same way that the girl that he raped did. And, in some ways, I think if you kind of think, if you kind of put that on paper, write it out, like, oh, that's going to be a cathartic ending. Like, oh yeah, he got what he deserved. But like, I didn't feel like there was a burden lifted on my chest. Like after seeing that, I was still thinking about what he did to that girl. And yeah, it's fictional, but that's not something that, that's something that does happen. So it's one of those things. I mean, in this fictional context, it's okay, we can kind of move on, but just the way they depicted that, it's one of those things that it doesn't, and the movie makes this very much a thematic, or part of its theme is that, the bad things happen. You don't just magically get over them.
No. Yeah, there's a whole scene with him on the porch talking to the father of the daughter that died. And he talks about how he went to a seminar, and the person, the guy that was heading up the seminar talked about how you need to dwell on the pain in order to remember the good that person brought you. And then at the very end there, you're like you said, the retribution has been dealt, and it's been done, but at the same time, you're just kind of, there was no big finale or anything else. It was very somber.
And I think it's a very touching tale of grief and coping. And it's definitely something that I haven't really gone through anything kind of like that, but it still really did strike a chord for me where, yeah, I mean, it was heavy.
And then the movie ends with two people just sitting on the ground in front of her swing set, and then I tell you what, it ends with this title card, this thing at the end where it says that there's missing person reports for everybody in the United States except Native American women,
right?
And nobody knows what happens to them, which is it's very stark. And it's I don't know, man. It's a very heavy movie.
Yeah.
And it's well done too. You know what I mean? It's not like it's written in a way that's heavy. The whole movie
and it's not meant to be oppressive or anything. It's just, it's such a perfect slice of life for this kind of, these characters that we see. And it's, like I said, it's done in such a naturalistic way that it does affect you in ways that you might not expect it to.
And the theme's carried over from Hell or High Water. Hell or High Water takes place, it's less of a natural environment kind of movie where the scenery and everything kind of conveys the story. It does, but it doesn't. Where Hell or High Water takes place in a town that's literally withering apart from the economy, and these two brothers seek to better their situation by doing what they do, and which is robbing banks. And it's the same situation where these two people, the environment around them has put them in a situation to where they need to do what they need to do to survive. And survival is very much a theme across all three of his movies. Is the will to survive.
Right.
And,
I mean, it's definitely central to this movie.
Yes.
Like you said, it is.
It's literally the theme to this movie, whereas, Sicario, it might be this literal thing as well.
Right.
Where Hell or High Water might be more, it might be more of a thematic theme. But this guy, Taylor Sheridan,
yeah, that's a name to watch out for. I'm in for everything that this guy does from this point on.
He's very much I want to say he's an auteur. You catch Sicario on satellite or however you want to watch it, and then you go to the movie theater and you watch Wind River, and you can tell that he has a hand in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
it's very distinct.
Yes,
style.
Very distinct. And it's just an incredible movie.
Yeah.
How would you rate this movie on our
scale, which we haven't used since week 1 because we've been talking about television shows for too long. So to refresh our listeners on our scale, we're going to go off of, would you watch it in the theater? Would you wait for the Blu-ray? Would you wait for Netflix? Or would you wait until someone offers to pay you to watch the movie? And I'll go out on a limb here and say for the both of us, this is absolutely go to the theater.
Go to the theater and watch this movie.
This is, again, I guess, you might be that person that Andrew sold a car to at the car lot where we went in expecting the wrong thing, and this isn't that.
You need to expect a slow burn, character-driven movie it's a slow burn movie.
Yeah, and I guess, it's probably the easiest comparison to make is whatever your feelings were on Sicario, whatever your feelings were on Hell or High Water, you'll probably have very similar feelings about this.
If you haven't seen them, you can stream Sicario on Amazon, I believe.
I believe so, yes.
I don't know about Hell or High Water.
Yeah, it might be too new.
But Sicario, you can start with Sicario, and Sicario is fantastic. It's very good. If you want to make that decision before you jump into the theater. Which, on a side note, it's very much a side note. If you haven't bought into the MoviePass, you need to buy into the MoviePass. $10 a month. We got to use it this weekend. It works. And if you can get the MoviePass, just Google it and it'll pop up. And,
and you'll find all the details online, but just to give a brief kind of summary of what it is, it's $10 a month and you can see a 2D movie every 24 hours through the entirety of the month without any further restrictions. So, all you need to wait for your card to show up before you can use it. And naturally, it's something that is such a ridiculous deal that they've gotten a lot of traffic recently, a lot of, an influx of a lot of new users. So it might take a little while for your card to show up, but once it does,
you can always use the e-ticket. E-ticket's accepted at a very limited amount of theaters.
Yeah, so you search by zip code, you can find tickets near you that might accept the e-ticketing option, and that'll get you right in the door without having to worry about the card. But either way, it's a phenomenal deal, and for anyone, especially us, it's very convenient. Given that we're still pretty new to this podcasting game, it's one of those things that's going to be so much easier for us to see not only things that we're going to review here, but just anything else that catches our interest. So it's a great deal. Yeah, check out. I believe it's MoviePass.com, and you can kind of find the details from there. But yeah, from our experience this weekend, highly recommended.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so speaking of our MoviePass experiences, let's talk about what we've been up to lately, and we've kind of been hanging out this past weekend. So there's a movie I think that both of us want to kind of briefly talk about. We're not going to do a full rundown on it, but
Baby Driver.
Yeah, Baby Driver. Now I'd already seen this movie. This was your first time seeing it, so I'll kind of let you.
And this was the first movie that we used the MoviePass on. We used the e-ticketing thing. We went to what's the name of that theater?
The Studio Movie Grill
at the University Mall, which we're in Tampa.
Florida.
Yeah. University Mall, just to give it a frame of reference, is a very old mall. And generally speaking, at least in my experience, mall theaters are generally garbage. And I try to avoid them like the plague. But we went on a limb. We went there. We used the e-ticketing feature on MoviePass. And to my surprise, I was thoroughly impressed with the theater. if you have one of those theaters in your area, I'd say it's probably worth going to. It's almost like a Cinebistro kind of thing where you can order food and eat it while you watch the movie.
Yeah, or an Alamo Draft House type thing for anyone that happens to be listening in Texas and wherever they've expanded to now.
Right. And it's at least this particular theater was I mean, like I said, I was thoroughly floored on I will go back. The food was good. It was inexpensive. It's not like you go and you spend $10 on a large bag of popcorn. You know what I mean? You can get decent food at a decent price, and the theater was clean. It was very nice. It was and the sound and the projection and everything else on a theater experience level was very good.
And moreover, the movie itself.
The movie itself was very good as well. I hadn't seen it yet, but one thing that really gets me going is when a movie's edited with their soundtrack. In most recent memory, you have Guardians of the Galaxy, which is very in tune with their soundtrack. And Baby Driver definitely is definitely edited in a fashion to where it leverages its soundtrack in the actual movie and the acting and everything else, and it was definitely a fantastic movie. It was really good.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the soundtrack, it's a movie, I think, that was constructed around the soundtrack, vice the kind of the opposite scenario.
It was very stapled, right?
Where you have literal gunshots that are in beat with the music, and it was filmed in that way.
The gear shifting in the cars.
I mean, it's. I guess we're not going to get into spoilers on that, just because we don't want to ruin it for anyone that hasn't had a chance to see it, because it is something that needs to be experienced, I think. But it's the soundtrack is amazing on it in its own right. I mean, it's great music, but just the way that it's really synchronized with the action beats, the car driving sequences and everything in it, it's just technically incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everything else in it is good too.
That's a movie that if you can see in theaters, I also recommend you see that in theaters.
Yeah, so that's our brief rundown of Baby Driver is 100% see it in theaters. It might be kind of late getting one by the time this comes out, but it did do a slight re-expansion into theaters. So if it's still playing, 100% recommended that you get it. You go to the theater and experience it in that medium, because that's the way to do it. You need that sound just peeling the skin off your face.
Absolutely. Yeah. But what have you been up to?
I watched another movie this week called Alien Covenant.
Oh yeah. Would you recommend watching that? Would you recommend purchasing that Blu-ray?
This is one of the worst movies I've watched this year.
I know you hated it. You hated Prometheus.
Prometheus for me was kind of an experience where I was super hyped walking into it. The trailers and the marketing material in general were just so fantastic. And then I walked into Prometheus, and by the time I exited the theater, I kind of was just like, I don't know what I just watched. And usually when I think that, it's because I haven't accepted the fact that I hated something yet. Like, it's something I wanted to like so much that my brain is like, that was different. Or, like some weird excuse where I'm just like, in my brain, I can't just tell myself that I hated it. But yeah, Prometheus is garbage. It's a beautifully shot movie. But in terms of the plotting, the script, the characters, it's just some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen.
I would agree with you. I enjoyed Prometheus probably more than you did.
But you haven't seen it in a while.
I haven't seen it in a while. This is fair. I haven't seen it since it was in theaters. And I thoroughly enjoyed the marketing material, which, to be fair, has nothing staked in the movie at all.
Right.
You did show me a clip from Covenant, and I don't feel compelled to watch it at all.
No, like I said, this is easily one of the worst movies I've seen this year. It takes the stupidity of Prometheus and triples down on it. And not only does it do that, but it combines it with the general stupidity that the Alien franchise eventually devolved into with Alien Resurrection and the Alien vs. Predator films. It just takes the worst elements of those, mixes it with the worst elements of Prometheus, and it's incredible how terrible this movie is. So I showed you a scene before we recorded this where there's a robot, British Michael Fassbender, having a conversation with the American robot Michael Fassbender, and the British one is teaching the American one how to play the flute. And there's 3 minutes in this fucking movie that's less than 2 hours.
I caught myself asking if it was a deleted scene. It very much felt like a deleted scene.
It does. It feels like it is. I mean, it's 3 minutes of this fucking movie just dedicated to, here, just gently blow into the hole, and I'll finger the flute for you. Like, it's just weird homoerotic overtones into this scene that has absolutely no bearing on the plot, absolutely no place within this already crappy movie, and it's just like, what the hell is this movie? I was just watching this movie, and it was bad up until this point, but then it just gets into this weird moment where it's just like,
what am I watching?
What is the purpose of this? It's like, like I said, it takes the stupidity of Prometheus and it just brings it to whole new levels where I'm just like, the Alien franchise, oh my God, what has become of this? Like, what in the hell is this? Like, it's kind of a movie that tries to explain the mythos of, you know, the xenomorph, the alien that we see in Alien and see very frequently in Aliens and all the, you know, the sequels that come
movies
after that. And it's just like, this is something that didn't need to be explained. Like, no one cares. No one wants to know. And the explanation that you provided is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. And let me tell you, I've watched one season of Iron Fist, and I've watched one season of Defenders, which featured the Iron Fist. So I've seen some real dumb shit come out of people's mouths. And this is just
the dumbest.
This is just, I can't. Don't watch this movie. It sucks ass. Make sure you wait until someone pays you to see this movie. And when they offer you, hey, here's $1,000, you off the offer. $5,000 or no deal.
Oh man.
So yeah, that's been the movie that I watched. Now to go in a complete opposite direction, to pump the brakes a little bit, outside of the movie and TV stratosphere, I've been listening to some podcasts. I mentioned a couple last week that I listened to, and I wanted to do a shout out to Ink to Film with Luke and James. This is a podcast that just started. I think they have 2 episodes out now, and their basic concept is that they're going to be covering any books that are being adapted to films, and so they're going to do a deep dive of the book, and then when the movie comes out, they'll kind of do a deep dive into the film, comparing it to the book, and anything like that. So they're covering Stephen King's It, which we talked a little bit about earlier in the episode, and they're only a couple of episodes in, and I've really enjoyed what I've heard so far, so I definitely would do a recommendation of them. And
yeah, no, you showed me them on the way to the movie theater this morning, and their production value seemed quite high. It definitely seems like something I'll probably get into myself, especially since they're it's not like they're Hollywood stars making this thing, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's they're very much almost on the same level we are, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely it's definitely something enjoyable to listen to. If you haven't listened to it, look them up. They definitely are covering a certain niche, which I think is definitely an interesting niche. I have run through the first 3 seasons of Game of Thrones in a week.
3+ seasons.
3+ seasons in a week. I spend my days leaving work, coming home, and watching Game of Thrones until about 3 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock in the morning, not 3 o'clock. Well, until I fall asleep. Let me rephrase that. I wait till I fall asleep on the recliner, and then I go take myself to bed. I saw up until season 3, when season 3 originally came out, and then I haven't watched anything since. And I'm just now starting season 4, and I'm sure everyone everywhere has been watching Game of Thrones. At least my Facebook feed dictates that or depicts that. But yeah, if you haven't started Game of Thrones, start Game of Thrones because it's pretty incredible. It's good stuff. I've been thoroughly enjoying that. And aside from doing the podcast and watching these movies this weekend, literally all I've done all week is watch Game of Thrones. So
and it's such a bingeable show, as you mentioned to me, kind of off the air.
Yeah, you can watch season 1, and then you can watch season 2, and it picks up right where season 1 left off, and then same thing with season 2 to 3. You know what I mean? It's a very well-made show. And I'm pretty sure that anybody that's listening to this podcast has probably watched Game of Thrones.
They're probably further than you are.
Yeah, I mean, that's, so I'm probably preaching to the choir, but just the way that they can intertwine all of these characters, and they're such rich characters, right? I mean, they're so well made. And I read the first 2 Song of Ice and Fire books a while ago, and I'm getting into uncharted territory now. But even though there are differences between the characters, between the books and the show, I feel that just a lot of that depth of character, understanding and everything is definitely conveyed through the show. And it's interesting to watch the characters grow and watch their stories unfold on the screen, because they do an incredible job as far as I'm concerned. But that's literally all I've been doing is just watching Game of Thrones, so I don't have a whole lot to write home about this week.
Well, I mean, you've still got a few seasons ahead of you, so you got some work to do. But you've definitely been putting in some work this past week.
I'm sure by next episode, I could probably tell you what I think about the finale. I could probably give you my review. Season 7 finale. Actually, I guess the time of recording this might have already aired, but obviously neither of us have had a chance to check it out. So I won't be able to open Facebook until probably Friday, because everything's going to be on the internet.
Probably. But yeah. Well, I guess it's for all of our listeners. Thank you again for taking the time to listen to us ramble on and on about these movies that we either enjoy or don't enjoy. It's awesome for us to hear any feedback that we get. If you do have any feedback, we've got a Facebook page, we've got Twitter, we've got everything that you need to find. Just check it out. Check us out at www.watchreviewrepeat.com. You'll find very many helpful links up at the top there that'll kind of get you where you need to go. We've got a Gmail account if you'd like to do that. Alternatively, that's watchreviewrepeat@gmail.com. Our intro and outro tracks are generously provided to us under the Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0 license. That is the creation of Kevin MacLeod. The title is called Mechanolith, and if you listen to us on iTunes, Google Play, you can leave us a review directly through the store there. That would be awesome. That would help us potentially get us on the new and noteworthy charts.
Speaking of reviews, I received an email this week, and I would like to say that nothing is more uplifting than receiving an email out of the blue from somebody who listens to this podcast. Mm-hmm. It is, I was thoroughly floored to receive an email from somebody. One thing's when family's listening or something like that, sure, but it's another thing when somebody spontaneously emails you about something that we've talked about on the podcast. And I don't know, man, it made my day.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of engagement is what we're after. So yeah, I mean, like I said, thank you for taking the time to listen to us, and then thank you again for taking the time to engage with us, because it does really kind of, it's nice to know that
somebody's listening.
Somebody's listening, exactly. And we're doing this for our own benefit as well. We enjoy talking to each other, having these conversations, but if we can bring other people into the conversation, like, that's awesome.
Absolutely.
So that's it for me, Andrew.
No, that's it for me. Thanks for listening. Have a good night.
All right. We'll see you next week.